here in chapter 14. I mean, where D words apply, like disobey, deceive. I don't know if anybody did their homework or not. Okay. Judges chapter 14. It says, verse 1, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, she is the right one for me. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Some time later, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass. In it was a swarm of bees and some honey, which he scooped out with his hands and ate as he went along. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they too ate it. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Now his father went down to see the woman, and Samson made a feast there, as was customary for bridegrooms. When he appeared, he was given 30 companions. Let me tell you a riddle, Samson said to them. If you can give me the answer within 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. Tell us your riddle, they said. Let's hear it. He replied, Out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet. For 3 days they could not give him the answer. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, Coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to rob us? Then Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, You hate me, you don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. I haven't even explained it to my father or mother, he replied, so why should I explain it to you? She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the 7th day he finally told her, because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before the sun set on the 7th day, the men of the town said to him, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? Samson said to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, and he went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of their belongings, and they gave their clothes to those who had explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he went up to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to a friend who had attended him at his wedding. Quite a story, isn't it? You know, it fits right in our day and age. I mean, Samson is just a picture of Israel, and he's also a picture of just what goes on today. So, let's look at this Samson story. It says, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. Well, right off the bat, Samson's doing what? Is he going the right places?
No.
Where's he going? That's right. What D word can you see right there? Disobedience. Okay? And he saw a young Philistine, and then when he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. Is he looking for the right thing? He's looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place, right? You ever wonder why it is like it is today? I mean, us who believe we have the Spirit of God, that world out there, what influence does it operate under? Pardon? Satan's realm. The flesh. I mean, everything that's wrong. First, right off the bat, in Deuteronomy, somebody want to look at Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 3, somebody read that.
When the Lord your God shall bring you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and shall clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God shall deliver them before you, and you shall defeat them, and you shall utterly destroy them, you shall make no covenant with them, and show no favor to them. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them, you shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons.
Okay. These people are not covenant people with Lord God Almighty, are they? And God explicitly forbids intermarriage. Okay? Let me ask you something. Would they be considered clean?
No.
Mm-mm. Interesting. Well, yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to explain that. Okay. We're not there yet. We just kind of hit on it, and everybody kind of gave me this perplexed kind of look and stuff. Yeah, verse 4 says, his parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at this time they were ruling over Israel. It doesn't mean that Samson, couldn't do only what he did. I mean, Samson made the wrong choices. And the reason I say that is God works behind the scenes to do his will. I mean, you can't put God in a box, but remember the story of Joseph? Remember how his brothers were jealous of him? And they sold him into the hands of the Ishmaelites who took him down there into Egypt, and they sold him into slavery. And remember when Jacob, their father, died in Genesis chapter 15, Joseph said, you meant this for harm. He's talking to his brothers, but God meant it for good. And then my other example, you can look at it. It's in Genesis chapter 50. I better take you there. In verse 19, Genesis 50, verse 19, it says, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done in saving many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them.
So in other words, God knew ahead of time that Samson was going to make wrong decisions, but he already knew that he was going to use it for good, or, I mean, I don't understand quite.
Well, here, let me...
Did Samson sin, and God said, okay, well, I can fix this, and it will...
Well, It's hard to fix sin. Jesus,
know.
the only way it got fixed was.
But according to this, God allowed it.
I know this is what's perplexing.
Yeah.
Now let's look at it this way. Easter's coming up,
Right.
right? Okay, remember when the baby Jesus was born?
Yeah.
What did King Herod try to do? Kill all
Kill
babies.
all the,
Who was behind all this?
well, it had to have been God.
It was Satan.
Oh, okay, Satan was behind it, but God, did he know ahead of time? and
Well, of
already-
course he did.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
we're
what I'm
gonna,
trying to
we're
get
gonna, we're
straight
gonna,
in my
yeah,
head.
we're gonna look at that too,
Okay.
because this is perplexing stuff.
It is, because
Okay.
obviously Samson was trying to do his own thing, but it
That-
wasn't a surprise to God.
No,
Okay,
no,
Gotcha.
it wasn't.
gotcha.
Well, here, look at it this way. Remember when we come up and, we read the Gospels and we see Jesus' life and we come up to the crucifixion. Okay. Satan wanted to kill
Right.
Jesus Christ. Okay. All those people that were alive at that time, what did they say? They said, crucify him, right? And Jesus went to the cross. He bled and died, and he was buried, and he rose the third
And
day.
Christ knew what
Well, of course.
because he's God.
But did God bring good out of that?
Yes,
He
of
did.
course.
Was that decision that the people made to yell, crucify him, a good one?
No.
But did God bring good out?
Okay.
See, are you starting to understand?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
It doesn't mean, that we should keep on sinning.
No.
It doesn't mean that we can't do anything but sin. It means that God is behind everything.
Okay.
I mean, he is. I have an Acts verse, too, that proves that out somewhere. Let me look here right quick. But it's perplexing. But you see, since, Adam and Eve were created, since the fall in Eden, God's program is going on, and we're coming to now clearer picture. Here's a couple verses in Acts. Thank you, Dan, for that. Because it is perplexing. But we can't use that for an excuse.
The only reason for me it was perplexing is because we're saying, he disobeyed, he willingly did this, and then in the next verse it's saying, but God already knew,
Well, yeah.
and that's where I got.
Okay. Listen to this. This is Acts chapter 17. Okay? And it says in verse 26, Acts chapter 17, verse 26, from one man he made every nation of men. And this is speaking of God, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. Okay? And then if you go to Ephesians, there's all kinds of places said where we were chosen
Yeah.
before the world was ever formed.
Right.
Does God know?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I knew that
Yeah.
God knew, I just, confusing where we're saying he wasn't faithful to do it, and yet, yeah,
There you go. Does that help?
thank you.
Can I read my footnote from my Bible?
Yes.
It says right here, mixed marriages were forbidden. Samson's parents were right to oppose his marriage to a heathen woman from people who constantly oppressed Israel. We should not understand here that God had forced Samson into this marriage. Samson had made the decision. Though it was not right, God found a way to accomplish his will in spite of the lack of wisdom of one of his servants. It proved to be a critical link in the liberation of Israel. As in the footnotes.
Yep.
That helps.
Israel was they were supposed to be carrying on warfare. Remember we read that?
Yeah.
They were supposed to get rid of these ites and bites and mites or drive them out.
They started intervening.
But they didn't. Okay? Okay, and so that brings us to Samson's time. What was going on in Samson's time? They weren't even complaining.
Yeah,
They were comfortable
yeah.
with the Philistines. They were comfortable. Actually, you're going to find out that Judah came as we go on in this story, And they actually captured Samson and turned him over to the Philistines.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to really look at this story.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back to where we're at with Samson now. I knew we was going to get off on this, so. Whoops. But anyway, let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. This is important. We're not supposed to be yoked with unbelievers. I mean, the Bible, one of the things that, you can really pull out of the Bible is, not being yoked with an unbeliever. Somebody want to read that for us?
Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Is that all?
Yep. Don't be yoked with an unbeliever. It doesn't work. Light and darkness don't mix. I mean, it's uneven. And I know people that have married unbelievers and they really regret it. Yeah. So Samson, he's not listening to God at all. He's making bad choices. What's driving Samson? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be explicit. Hormones are driving Samson. He saw. And you listen good. Because, when it comes time to look for a wife, you look for somebody who loves the Lord. Because if you don't, So anyhow.
Mark,
What?
I had a friend in Australia, preacher friend, who used to really hit quite a lot on that matter of marrying unbelievers. And he said, you marry an unbeliever and you're going to have no end of trouble with your father-in-law. And of course the father-in-law is the devil.
That's exactly right.
That's his way of getting it across.
Well, that's really good. I'll steal that. Okay.
If you marry an unbeliever, you have no end of trouble with your father-in-law.
That's right. Because don't wonder why it is like it is, because the whole thing that drives that whole thing out there is the flesh, the devil. It's just, and it doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to hit on verse 3. It says, his father and mother replied, isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, get her for me. She's the right one for me. What do you see there? What's that? D word? Disrespect. He didn't. Somebody tried to give him some good counsel, right? Hey. Pardon me?
It was demanding. He wasn't asking.
No.
That's disrespect.
I mean, he wasn't listening.
Yeah.
He wasn't listening at all. I mean, he wasn't listening to God. He wasn't listening to his folks. Okay?
Or to what he knew was right.
Well, he said, yeah, listen, mine says she's the right one for me, but what it literally means, she looks good in my own eyes, she looks good. I don't know if she's mousy, messy, or whatever, but she looks good. Anyway.
Achan said the same thing in Joshua 6. He saw the gold and the silver first, steps to sin. He saw, he coveted, he took.
Yeah.
Yep.
You see it with Samson. He saw, he coveted, or lusted, whichever.
There any lessons for us? Huh?
Protect your eyes.
Yeah,
Didn't do the same thing.
Well, I see a lot of Samson in me, that flesh. Okay? It says, his parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards at Timnah, suddenly a lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Okay, what's going on here? Samson's not even supposed to eat grapes, as I remember, right? Well, somehow on the trip down, he got separated from his folks, right? Where are you growing vineyards? There again. What's Samson doing there? He's doing what he wants. That's a good reply. And then this lion comes, right? And he tears him apart. You think that's a pretty good feat? Why do you think I'm out of time? I'm over time. Why do you think for next week's Sunday school, I want you to be diligent about this. Why do you think Samson didn't tell his folks? Would that not be a newsworthy article if a guy tore up a lion with his bare hands? Do you think that'd hit the front headlines? How about a grizzly bear? I mean, the same difference. Don't you think that's a little outstanding? Well, why didn't he tell his folks for next week? What do you think? Put yourself back in that time. Another thing I want you to look at. I looked at it this last week. It says that he went back and after he ripped that line, and there was a honeybees that made honey in it. I want you to look up what bees prefer for nesting. Wild honeybees, where they prefer to nest for your assignment for next week. So that I'm not the only one. Because I'm going to tell you something. That riddle that he came up with, it was unsolvable because honeybees don't prefer dead carcasses. But anyway, Ken, will you close us with prayer, please?